Mary Esther Judy, you're very welcome to the Script to Story podcast, season 5. And we talked before about different books that you reviewed because you are a children's book reviewer.
For many years.
For many years. You're very successful with your blog. Tell us all about your blog.
The blog, well, Fallen Star Stories has been operating on one platform or another for about 15 years, maybe.
Yeah, and
I think that's about right. And all it is about is children's books and things of interest to the world of children's literature. I've read a lot of books. I've reviewed hundreds on the blog.
I'd say it's probably thousands at this stage that you reviewed.
Yeah, or maybe hundreds that the reviews have made it up on the blog, and thousands in the meantime. I also review for English Magazine, and I've reviewed for other places. I do a bit of editing. Children's books are my thing because I think, first of all, it's my preference of reading. If I go into a bookshop and I'm going to pick up a book, you got a 99% chance that it's going to be a children's book. And the reason for that is I've just always loved them. I like the way the stories are told. The authors of children's books go in, they tell the story, and they get out. And there is so much in a children's book that allows the mind of the reader to pick up on the information that they're being given and run with it in their head. So you don't have a lot of explanation or a lot of the author leading you in certain directions. But having said that, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just, when you said that, the author leading you in different directions, I was just thinking when I was a child and I was reading children's books, today is International Women's Day. And I was just thinking when I was a child, all the heroes were boys and all the main characters were boys, and it was always about boys, and I used to get so frustrated and fed up as a young girl.
Where am I? Yes.
Why can't I be the hero? After all, I'm the one who gives the boy the helping hand when he falls down, in terms of my brothers, or the courage to get back up. And I was always a brave, courageous child, and my nearest two brothers were always kind of scaredy cats, as I would have said as a child. And here they are, the heroes of every story. And here I am, the nobody in terms of the children's stories. Yeah. And here it is, International Women's Day. And has anything changed since I was a child?
Oh, definitely. In terms of children's literature, definitely. There are far more stories now where the girl is the hero. The girl is the central character. It's just so marvelous to see, because you've got these girls now who are coming up and going, these things are happening to me. And I'm not running to a boy going, can you help me fix this? Will you please save me? What you have are the girls going, no, I'm going to do this. And the boys that are involved in it take the seat of her support, her helper. Sometimes she has to save the boys. Sometimes the boys.
That's a nice turnaround. That's a nice turnaround. Yeah, and
it's a very nice turnaround.
In terms of authors that are out there now, because I've noticed with Tribes Press that, like, we have a book that's coming out this Christmas, and the book was illustrated by a Russian illustrator, and this woman who is in Russia, we were able to link up with this woman, with the Irish author, and create a beautiful, beautiful book, children's picture book that will be coming out this Christmas. But we were able to do that. We were able to combine forces in a way that we wouldn't have been able to 30 years ago, 20 years ago even.
It's an online world now.
Yeah. And has that influenced what we see on the bookshelves, do you think?
I believe it does in a very interesting way, in that it opens things up more. You have access to all kinds of different voices that you wouldn't have had before.
Yes.
Or you would have had them, but it would have been such a small percentage that it had to get past the gatekeepers.
Yes. Yeah. I
And it,
understand.
you know, in order to get published, in order to get out there. And the gatekeepers were the gatekeepers, and you know, they may have been very set in their views, or they were preaching to a specific audience, and the audience was largely sort of a white middle class audience. And so the representation of other voices, and very, you know, English speaking audience as well. And so the representation that they were putting out there was very much geared towards that. Now, with an online world, with the immediate access to countries all over the world, different voices, different cultures, different lifestyles, and the women out there who were writing, and the women of color, the people of color. You have this immediate access, and the world has, if you will, it's gone very small.
And isn't that a wonderful thing?
I think that's a wonderful thing to hear.
Yeah.
You know, some of the best books I've read in the last 10 years have been from international voices, have been from people all over the place, and also have been written by maybe your more traditional, in the view of the publishing world, authors, but with that international voice coming in.
Okay, that's
If you get my drift.
That's interesting, because the whole season 5 of Scripted Stories is all about the words we use. And the words we use can be so powerful. Writers, authors who have that international voice, because we're exposed to that international community now. We're coming together as a community. The world is coming together as a community. That it's amazing to hear you say that, because the words we use are changing. Then, as an author, what we say is encompassing a greater richness of the world community, I would think. Yeah,
exactly. And the words we use that are coming from other countries, other cultures, are informing the sensibility of what would be seen as being the very traditional authorship, you know, white, generally male, generally, you know, even when they were women, they were speaking in that voice. Like you said, all the heroes were boys, you know. And now this broader spectrum of this online world that we are in now, the immediate access to other cultures and other countries and their voices, has started to, but it's very much in the fore of informing how we think, how we act, how we write. It's still threatening to a lot of people, but the threat is subsiding when we start to look and see and listen. And I think we're getting a firmer understanding that this is one world where we're not so very different.
No, definitely
the concerns we have are not so very different.
And I like the fact that because we have that international voice in our authors, because people are communicating globally so well now and so quickly, that we have a wonderful gift to give to children, because children are the future, but children deserve that, because they're sitting next to children of different ethnicities in their classroom.
Exactly.
And for them, they shouldn't feel in their storybooks, no child should feel that they're different. They should feel part of the community, you know, part of this world.
Exactly.
So it's fantastic to hear that that's happening.
Exactly. And much to the work of a lot of people who have fought that battle for a long time. There are many authors out there, great authors, and their books are beautiful, but they had to struggle to get their books heard. The broadening of that international community through the World Wide Web, through the internet.
It's a fantastic thing to hear.
Yeah.
It really is. I wonder then, as we move forward into the future, what these children will create, what will be the world that they will create in their stories when they become authors, or the words that they will use to describe how it is for, we'd say, Irish Malaysian child growing up in London. So 3 different cultures at once. Or for us here in Ireland, we have the New Irish, which are we could have Polish, many Nigerians are here. Many different cultures are here, and they're the new Irish. We have the old Irish and the new Irish, and how it is growing up, and how it can be the writing that will come from Ireland as a result of this.
Which has always had that huge literary tradition. I think it's marvelous to see. I love Ireland. I really love Ireland for the fact that with all the struggles, with all the trouble that we have here, with all the difficulties that come up in the social structure, it really does feel like a microcosm of the world. When I first moved to Ireland 25 years ago, I was sitting in Eyre Square next to an old man, a very old man, and we were just having a chat. And it was his gig. What he did is he came and he sat down in Eyre Square, and he sat there for a couple of hours every day. And he said, "You know why I sit here?" And I said, "No, why is that?" And he goes, "You sit in Eyre Square for an hour, you hear every kind of human sound."
Yeah.
And he says, "The whole world walks right past me on any given day." And that was 25 years ago. And now, if you go down and you sit in Eyre Square, you really do hear every kind of human sound in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
And it's marvelous.
It is marvelous. It is marvelous, because we're now learning, like, in terms of, I know my own father. I was talking to Catherine Ganu in last week's Script to Story, the honorary French consul, and last week's Script to Story episode, and she was talking about how different words get integrated into languages. And like I would say, I said, actually, my dad asked me today if I would pick up a sweet cake for the tea. And she was like, and I said, he could have just said cake if it was the English language he was taking that from, but he was taking it from the Irish language, so it had to be defined. There's a difference between cake and a sweet cake. Sweet cake is the cake that we know, sponge cake or whatever, Madeira or whatever it is, chocolate log or whatever it is you want. But he translated that directly. And then there's little things that I've heard along the way. A German woman I know in Ireland, she said to a colleague at work, she said, "Good woman." And the Irish person turned to her and she said, "Where did you hear that?" And the German woman said, "Isn't that what you Irish say when you mean well done?" And it is, but it's from the Irish language.
Yeah.
Mahan van, Mahan far, it's from the Irish language. And so she was even picking that up from her time here. Or she sat in the tea room and the staff room, and she one of the girls in the staff room was saying, "I can't remember the name of what Charlie is in Irish," and she said Cathal. So we're actually an international, and she knew it. So we're actually already an international community without even knowing it. So the little terms, we will pick up little terms that integrate from different cultures into our own language. And how rich will our writing be as the new Irish? How rich will that writing be? It will be wonderful to see that going forward.
And the way it changes, it's a gradual kind of thing. And it slips in ways that we don't even notice. That suddenly we are picking up terminology from other places. We are picking up, it's not a simple thing, but it slides in very simply, and we suddenly understand that. I think I lived here for about just a couple of months when I suddenly found myself using the phrase "fair play to you." Now, that is not something I would have ever used in my entire life. But suddenly that's such an Irish thing to say. And it had just come in, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
It's quite funny you're saying fair play to you. And I was in a restaurant yesterday in Galway yesterday evening, and the waitress, somebody was talking to the waitress, and the waitress said the weather is cat. And she's Malaysian. She wasn't Irish. And I said that was such a Galway thing to say, the weather is cat. It makes no sense. It makes
No,
absolutely
no.
no sense. But they're the terms when we'll pick up terms from Malaysians or Germans or Italians or Polish or Russians or Nigerians, whatever culture we're mixing in with, and so wonderful is that for the words we use in our stories going forward. So
the language becomes broader and the world becomes, I'm not sure smaller is the right thing. I think
integrated. There's an understanding.
More integrated, more, it becomes closer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we begin to see these things. We were talking about the importance of our language, the words we use. And I've been reading a lot lately. I'm always reading a lot. But I picked up a couple of things. I was reading one of my absolutely favorite books. This is a YA book. It's a young adult book. It's called Words in Deep Blue.
Okay.
There. And there's a quote in here that just struck me. So I'm going to read it to you, if you don't mind.
I'd love to hear it. I would love to hear it.
They're talking about words. They're talking about the terminology bookstore as opposed to bookshop, because this whole thing takes place in and around a bookshop. And it talks about how books were special, and a bookshop is a place you go to find them, whereas a bookstore is a place where they are stored. And so words are important. Words matter, in fact, he says. They're not pointless, as you've suggested. If they were pointless, then they couldn't start revolutions. They couldn't change history. If they were just words, we wouldn't write songs or listen to them. We wouldn't beg to be read to as kids. If they were just words, then stories wouldn't have been around since before we could write. We wouldn't have learned to write. If they were just words, people wouldn't fall in love because of them, feel bad because of them, ache because of them, and stop aching because of them. And that's the thing about words and about books. They are important. They are hugely important. And as much as we talked about the online world, and I know a lot of people do reading online, there is something about reading the words printed and holding the book in your hand and knowing you can go back and you can go forward with ease, that brings those words into you and really means something and informs who you are as a person. I would add to that, if they were just words, books would never be banned. And a huge number of books have been banned because of the words they use and the concepts that they communicate to people and put in people's minds. In those books, if they were just words, we wouldn't even bother to ban books. So many of the great works of literature have been banned. So many incredible children's books have been banned because of the concepts that those words communicated, and for ridiculous reasons. You probably know this about me because we've known each other for some time. My favorite children's book, picture book of all time, is Where the Wild Things Are. And I was given that as a very small child when it first came out by my father, who read it to me. It was probably one of the first books I learned to read myself. I read it to my children. I've read it to as many school classes as I can get my hands on, because I love the book. That was a banned book. That book got banned. And we think about it now, and it's like, why? The reason they banned it was because it encouraged disobedience in children.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
The night Max wore his wolf suit and made mischief of one kind and another, his mother called him Wild Thing. I'll eat you up, he says. And so he was sent to bed without eating anything. But then he goes off and he runs away. It encourages disobedience in children. We're going to ban that book.
My goodness. My goodness. When you
And
think,
as you said, I just quoted that book. I don't even have to look at the
mm,
words anymore. I know that book. It became so much a part of me. And I never felt like it encouraged disobedience when I looked back. I never felt it encouraged disobedience in my own children. What I felt was it encouraged them to be bold,
mm,
to be brave, to have adventures,
mm,
and to know that they could sail out through the night and across in and out days and almost over a year to the place where the wild things are and become their king. And then come home where they'll find their supper waiting for them and it's still hot. The love is still there. Be bold, be adventurous, be brave. And it's still there. That is in just about every single really good children's book that I've known, that message of be bold, be brave.
We want that for our children. We want for our children a lot of the things that we maybe even have been afraid as children to experience.
Yes.
We want them to have that courage, to be brave, to be bold, to live life as if it is an adventure.
Yes.
Mary, I'm going to say this has been a wonderful conversation with you. As always, I would love to see you back here in Script to Story podcast series again.
I'd love to.
You're a fountain of information. I
Thank
love
you.
listening to you. I love the words you use. And thank you very much for being here. And as to you, as we say to all women today, happy International Women's Day.
And happy International Women's Day to you and to all the women out there. And be bold and be brave and use your words.
Go on an adventure.
Absolutely.
Take care. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Marguerite.
Bye-bye.
Bye.